Are you alive? Extra hour of sleep, and Pastor Matthew told me because everybody got an extra hour of sleep that I get an extra hour today. So we're going to have a lot of fun. No, that's not true. I do feel like this church feels like home to me, and it's not just because of the space of the building, but because you guys really make me feel at home. And one of the things I love is the spirit of the house, I believe, is often predicated on the spirit of the primary leader. And one of the things that I feel about your pastor is he is one of my closest friends, my best friend in ministry. And here's what that means. We celebrate each other and what God's doing, and we support each other. And I just want to be honest with you. I don't know if I'd still be able to stay in ministry or at least have the heart that I have in ministry if it wasn't for your pastor. He's blessed me that much. He is one of the first people that I call when I have a leadership question, when I'm not sure about something. And I just want you to know, I think sometimes you can just sit and come every single weekend and just receive from one of the greatest leaders I know. And you can get so close to someone that you begin to take them for granted. And I just hope you never do that with Pastor Matthew, his wife Mary, their whole family. And I just want to take a moment and just honor them and just celebrate them if we could as a church. And so thank you guys. The best. You guys have the best. I really believe that. I feel like God's done so much in this church since the last time I was here. Logan campus launching hundreds more people and families coming to this church. I feel like I got to reintroduce myself to you when I come back here and my family. In fact, I brought a picture that I'd love to just share of my family. I'm going to stick on the screen. This is my amazing family. Can I just tell you, of all the things that God has graced me to do in life, including pastor a church for a very long time, the most important thing I've ever done with my life is that family. Spending my life, my time, my energy in this family. My wife, Laura Lee, who is here with us today, we are celebrating 30 years of marriage next year. Yeah, I love you. I was 14, she was 13 when we got married, if you're trying to do the math. That joke is going to run out as my gray hair keeps coming in. I have two, as Pastor Matthew said, two wonderful young adult daughters, Lauren and Audrey, that I dedicated the book to, and really their generation, who have met and married men that grew up in our church community. I think one of the most unforeseen benefits of being in a community like this is you have no idea how to change your family forever. And then the greatest blessing that we've experienced, my wife and I, in the last few years, is our oldest daughter, Lauren, and her husband, Hunter, have given us, that's the way I see it, a grandson named Cohen, who is literally the joy of our life right now. My wife and I are just absolutely head over heels in love with him. We are just in a really sweet season. It's so weird. This is crazy about life, and those of you who are younger, you'll experience this. But like, we often wonder what's the best season of life. And when you're younger and you've got all kinds of energy and all this stuff, and you kind of might think, you have less wrinkles and, the best shape of your life. And that's awesome. It really is. But I'm just going to tell you something. The best season of my life has just been the one that I'm in now. I just find that the older that I'm getting, the more I'm recognizing what matters in life, enjoying life even more. And my wife and I just recently became empty nesters and became grandparents, and we are literally having the time of our lives. It's a beautiful season of life. And yet, here's the difficult part about it. I also recognize, and I look at the family and realize that I'm a grandfather. I'm all of a sudden realizing, wow, life is really passing by fast. How many of you have lived long enough to know life feels like it's moving so fast? Like, I'm just telling you, life will just pass you by. If you are not aware, if you're not paying attention, I'm just telling you, life will just scream by you. And it feels like just yesterday that I was 22 years old. And my wife and I were thinking about the future and our plans and maybe having a family. And all of a sudden now we have one and they're having one. And it's just crazy how time works. Like, time to me is such a weird thing because here's what we know. It's consistent. It's constant. We understand that. But time feels different the older you get. And it feels like we experience it differently, just sometimes day to day. Have you ever heard the old phrase that the days feel long and the years feel short? That's kind of true, isn't it? I mean, it's like, you ever been stuck in a day where it feels like the clock has just slowed down to a crawl, and you're at work and you're sitting there, you're working away, and you look at the clock, and then and you keep working forever and ever, and it's like an hour and a half must go by, and you look at the clock and only 3 minutes moved, and you're like, I'm trapped in work hell. I'm never going to get out of here. What's going on? I'm living in the Matrix right now. And then there are other times where, I got to be honest, it feels like years go by. Like, I remember taking my little girls to elementary school, and I remember dropping off there, and now they're moved out of the house, and it's like, it's so weird how you can just blink, and all of a sudden, your life has passed. I mean, we're about to hit Christmas already, and it's like, where did the time go? And here's what I've discovered about life. I don't know if any of you are wise enough to know this, and that is, the older that I get, the faster time feels like it's going. Anybody feel like that? Anybody here? The older I get, the faster time feels like it's going. And there was a season of my life when I just felt like I had the whole world in front of me, and I just like, there's so many possibilities. There's so many things that we're going to do in life, and then I feel like I blinked. And I woke up, and I have daughters that are grown and moved out, and I've got a grandson. And to be honest with you, I'm afraid if I blink again, they're going to be putting me in a nursing home facility. That's what it just feels like. You just wake up one day, and I have a grandson. How did that happen? But it is the greatest thing ever. And my point is this: time is slipping through our fingers. And I think it's a really important thing for us to recognize that, so we don't waste what God has given to us. It made me think about something that the half-brother of Jesus wrote in the book of James, a little letter that we have in the New Testament. This is not where we're going to land today, but I just want to use this to kind of set up our conversation about life. And in James chapter 4, and starting with, let me find it here, verse 13, listen to what James says. He said this: "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money." Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. And then he says these encouraging words: what is your life? You are a what? Would you all say it out loud? You're a what? Say it again. You're a mist. You're a vapor. A puff of air. He says, you're a mist that appears for a little while and then it vanishes. Now, I don't know how old James was when he wrote this, but he kind of feels like an old guy who's reflecting back on how fast his life has gone by. And he says, why do you have all these grand plans about what you're going to do and what you're going to build and all these things that you're going to accomplish? I mean, he almost sounds depressed. He almost sounds like a nihilist. He almost sounds like he's given up on life, but I don't think that's what his point is. I think James has realized something about life that if you're young, you haven't figured out probably. As you get older, you figure out, and that is that life is going so fast. Time is so fleeting. And we often think, I've got decades. I've got lots of time ahead of me. I've got time to do this and this. We have a bucket list, and one day we're going to do this. And what James is saying, you don't even know if you're going to be here tomorrow. That's a sobering thought. There's one that I was made recently just like really aware of. In fact, this past winter in February of this year, we were at church. I think it was February 16th, if I remember correctly. We were at church, probably you were, and a massive snowstorm hit while we were at church. Like, it had rained for days, and then it turned freezing rain, and then snow just dumped while we're in church, right? Which is always exciting when you get done. And my wife and I had to go to Lancaster. We were going to Lancaster for a family function. We were going to celebrate a birthday, and there's level 2 snow emergency. And so we're making our way down there after church. Now, she's driving in her car, which is an SUV. I'm driving in my car. It's a sedan. And we're on the phone, Bluetooth, of course, hands-free, and we're talking to each other. And I get on 33, and I'm like, I told her, I said, these roads are not good. She was like, yeah, they're not great. And I said, are you having trouble? She has a brand new SUV. She was like, it's not that bad. And I've got an older sedan. And I'm like, well, I'm sliding all over the road. This is dangerous, right? Why are we even doing this? So we're driving down there. She's ahead of me a little bit. I go to change lanes to get off the 33 business route to go that way, right? I go to change lanes, and the moment I cross over to change lanes, I hit a patch of ice with slush and everything, and my car begins to spin sideways going down 33. I don't know if you've ever been in those kind of situations, but it is so scary when you are out of control, flying down the freeway. I'm going about 50 miles an hour and just spinning, doing donuts in the middle of 33. And I don't know if you've ever been in like a weird accident, and people have said this, and you don't realize it until you get into one of those moments, but it feels like time just stops almost. And you're beginning to see your whole life in front of you. That's what they say, right? And so we're on the phone, and I'm beginning to spin out of control in the middle of the freeway. A truck is right over there, right? I'm spinning out of control. And my poor wife, who's on the other end, of the phone in the car, all she hears is, oh no, oh shoot. Now, in all honesty, it was something like that. It was really... It sounded like that. Listen, when you're about to die or something, just stuff comes out of you, okay? I just be honest. Probably my last time here, so anyways, we'll just have fun today. And so I'm literally like, oh shoot. And then I said this, I'm gonna die. And then you hear smack as I nail the guardrail. And now my poor wife, who's on the other end of the phone, all she hears is, I'm going to die, and then it goes quiet. And I smack into the guardrail, bounce out into the freeway, and then come sliding back against the guardrail, pinned there. My car's going, making all the crazy noises. And she's like, are you okay? And I just I think so. Now, here's the crazy thing, right? My life flashed before my eyes. I don't know how it worked, and angels with me and all that stuff, but I walked away from it. My car was totaled, and I walked away without a single scratch. And that's why I think, man, God's grace was with me in that moment. But I also walked away with a huge reminder. Life is fragile. Life is short. I don't care if you're 16 years old or if you're 76 years old. We might all think we have so much time that we just don't know that we have. And so I think when James writes, hey, listen, you got all these grand plans, that's awesome. But you don't even know how long of a life you have. And the truth is, even if you live to be 90, in the span of history, it's a vapor. That's what life feels like to me right now. James would go on to say this in verse 15. He said, instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. He's kind of just saying, listen, you've got all these plans which are great, and you're like, we're going to do this and build this and buy this and create this, and I'm going to be worth this, and that's great. You got all these plans for your own life, but then he says something really, it's challenging. Verse 17, he says, if anyone then knows the what? Would you all say it out loud? Knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it's what for them? That's crazy, isn't it? See, most of us, when we think about sin, we think about all the things we're not supposed to do. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't murder, don't steal. Top 10, right? Well, all the things we're not supposed to do. But James wants us to see something a little bit deeper, and that is that if you don't recognize what God has put in you, what he's calling us to do, in other words, to do good in this world for those around us, not to live for yourself, but to live for a higher purpose, for a bigger story, and you don't step into it, he says it's actually a sin for you. That's strong. And so some of you might be here and you go, okay, well, I don't want to do that. And I want to move in the direction that God has me. How do I know how to do that? Well, honestly, that's why I wrote the book I did. One of the reasons why I wrote this book is because I woke up one day and realized, I have fewer days in front of me than I do behind me probably. I woke up and I realized, it's just realization that hit me, that so many of the small decisions that I didn't even think were that important that my wife and I had to make when we were in our teens and our 20s, the decisions of how we were going to live and honor God, what we do with our finances, I didn't realize how important those were to creating the future that we're living in today. And so I thought, I want to share this because here's the beautiful thing about the future, guys. It hasn't been written. Do you know that you get to create the future? One of the greatest gifts that God's ever given to us is that you have an ability to create the future that is in front of you. And that doesn't matter. I'm not saying if you're 18. I'm saying that's also true if you're 78 or 83. You and I have an ability to still create the future. And the problem is a lot of times when we don't, it's because we're trapped in the present. And we're afraid to take the risk. In fact, if I could share, I know for the last several months, years, I don't know, been working through the book of Matthew, right? And so I would love to just stay in that vein and share with you what Jesus has to say. We learned from James, which was his half-brother. Let's look at the perspective from Jesus. So if you have a Bible with you, I'd love for you to get it out and open up to Matthew chapter 25. Jesus, toward the end of his ministry, he shares some parables. And primarily, it's parables about the kingdom of heaven. Now, I want to read this one. And many of you have been around church. It might be a little familiar to you. But whenever Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven, here's what I want you to know. He's not talking about some place that will end up one day with golden streets and pearly gates and Peter standing out front. And that's not what he's talking about. When Jesus is talking about the kingdom of heaven, he's talking about God's perspective on our lives, on reality. And how so often here on earth is that we get it twisted. And so Jesus was forever trying to help us go, no, let me show you how God intended life to be. And so in Matthew 25, in verse 14, Jesus begins to share this truth. He says this, again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Okay, let's pause for a moment. This is a story of a wealthy owner who's going on business trip, whatever, journey, and he's entrusting all his wealth to 3 leaders, 3 servants. And he divides it, and this is what's crazy. He gives one of them 5 bags, one gets 2, and one only gets 1 bag. Now, I don't know how you read this, but when I'd read a passage like this, I would always kind of say sympathize and empathize with the guy who got 1 bag and almost kind of go, this seems unfair. Like, why not divide it up a little bit more evenly? Like, why give one guy 5 and one guy 1? That just doesn't seem very nice. And I think sometimes we bring that approach to reading scripture because we often, let's be honest, feel like the person who got 1 bag in life. I do sometimes. I have, in fact, a lot of my life just growing up in the shadow of an older brother who was bigger, stronger, smarter. Like, I spent my life kind of, I always say this, like I'm a jack of all, master of none kind of guy. Anybody like that? It's like, I'm not great at any one thing. I can dabble and do a lot of things, okay. But I'm not like, and I look at some people who are experts. You get some people, you ever see some people that feel like the full package? You know what I mean? They're tall, they're good looking, they're brilliant, valedictorian. They were like the quarterback on the team. Don't you hate them? They were the prom king, the stud. And then you find out they can also sing, and you're like, this is not fair. Like, you know what I mean? I always been looking at that guy go, that's not fair. How do you get all of it? And so I've just always felt that way about myself. And then I realize it's because I'm always comparing my inadequacies to everybody else's highlights. That's what we do, don't we? I mean, social media has really ramped that up where you just see everybody else who's just like, she's the perfect mom, and she like makes her own bread and like who has time for that? Churns their own butter, you know what I mean? Her kids only eat organic and you're just like, yeah, we're going to McDonald's again today, kids. We just don't have time. I suck as a mom. You know what I mean? You're just like, and you just feel like you just don't compare. And the reason why I think we look at a story like this and we can feel that way is because I think sometimes we miss what the master was really giving to them. Because in our culture, we put a disproportionate value on money, don't we? We think, that's not fair. You gave one 5 and the other just one bag of gold. That's not fair. But can I just tell you what we miss is that what the master was giving them wasn't money, but actually an expectation. Can I remind us all, it wasn't their money. It's the master's. He's actually saying, I'm going to entrust this to you, but it's not yours. This is for you. I want you to do something with it. So what he was giving them was an expectation. And to be truthful, the guy who got 5 bags had a much higher expectation on what he would do with it than the guy who got 1 bag. And so I think sometimes we don't realize it's not the weight of the gold that matters. It was the weight of the responsibility that he gave to them. And the truth be told, when you look at this story from a new perspective, I could make an argument that the guy who got 1 bag of gold was actually given something of greater value. Because here's the truth, right? The guy who got 5 bags of gold, go start a few businesses, go do some things. He loses 2 of them. He still has 3 to do something with it, but the guy with 1 bag has 1 chance. He's got 1 chance. I think we probably all understand this innately to be true, that the less you have of something, the more valuable it becomes. Isn't that true? Like, the last piece of cake is the one that everybody wants the most. You ever notice that? When you realize that you don't have a whole lot of time left, it becomes so incredibly valuable. I'm a big car nut, big car enthusiast. I love cars. Anybody here love cars? Raise your hand if you love cars with me. Okay, and I don't love all cars, but I like fast cars, to be honest with you. Sports cars, exotic cars. It's like my one-day dream to own something fast and exotic, you know. Don't know if that'll ever happen, but that would be fun, you know. I've just always loved cars. And if I could maybe help express what I'm trying to say about how we disproportionately get this, I could do it with cars. You may not be aware of this, but most popular, or should I say, the largest number of any one car that was ever created is the Toyota Corolla. All right? The Toyota Corolla. Look at that sexy thing right there. 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds or whatever it is. The Toyota Corolla. Now, if you have a Toyota Corolla, I just hear they're great cars. I really do. Over 55 million Toyota Corollas have been created and sold worldwide. So this is the most popular car ever made. This is the 5 bag, right? But guess what? Its value, it's worth about 25 grand new, okay? Get you from point A to point B, and that's great, but that's about all you want it for, all right? Toyota Corolla. Then compare that with, say, the Bugatti Chiron. Okay, there's that car. How many would you rather have that one over the Corolla? Hello? Yeah. Bugatti Chiron. By the way, this car, when it came out, they only made 500 of them. Handmade, French designer, okay, that made this car. Luxury, power, crazy, only 500. You can't buy one new. They've already been sold. They're not making any more of them. When this car first came out, the average selling price of this car was $3.3 million. Only 500 made. Guess what? It costs a lot more than that to buy one today. Now, I want you to compare that with, say, I don't know, a 1963 Ferrari GTO 250. Yeah. This car, by the way, in the 60s, over a span of about 2 years, Ferrari only made 36 of these. It's way less of them. Not the fastest car ever made, even today, right? Not the most luxurious car ever made. This particular one, though, that you're looking at a picture of is chassis 4153 GT. This car that you're looking at won the 1964 Tour de France. Now, some people go, I thought that's a bike race. It was a car race before, okay? And because of that, it is rare. This is one of 36, okay? When this particular car sold at auction back in 2018, it sold for over $70 million. Why? Because it's rare. Because it's one of one. Do you know what else is rare and only one of one? You. What is also rare is there's only one of you out of 8 billion people on the planet right now. And if I could just say this, we are this, the less you have of something, the more valuable it becomes. Can I just say, in the eyes of God and in our world, you are insanely valuable to him. You are worth so much to him. And I'm just telling you, if you go, well, I'm the one who got 1 bag. Well, let me just say this. That 1 bag is worth a lot. Your life is so incredibly valuable. And you know what is? The number of birthdays you have left. And we have no idea how many of them, but it is so incredibly valuable to God. And what I want you to know this is that the life that you've been given by God is a gift. The life that God has given you, it's a gift from God, but I want you to hear this. What you do with it is your gift to the world. The one life that you and I have been given, that's a gift from God. But what you do with it, it's not a gift to God, it's a gift to the world. And what if God created you and me, not just to come and live a nice life, a comfortable life, have a nice career, make our way toward retirement, sit around and not do anything? What if God created us to actually do good in this world, to change this world, to make an impact and bring heaven to earth? To see, that's what I think maybe that God created us for. And so when you look at this story, and maybe you didn't pick up on the metaphor yet. Can I explain the metaphor to you if you haven't? The master, well, that's Jesus. And the servants, that's us if you're a follower of Jesus. And it was Jesus before he was about to give his life on the cross and eventually ascend to heaven. He was looking at his followers and he's giving them this parable to say, hold on, I'm entrusting something to you. The same purpose that I have, I'm now giving it to you. The same life that I've been living and leading, I'm giving it to you. This is what you're called to do. And the guy who got 5 bags, he went and worked it. And he made 5 more, started businesses, risked it, put it in investments. We don't know, it's a parable, it's a story. But the guy who got 2 bags, he went and did the same thing. And each of them doubled what the master had entrusted to them. And when the master came back, this is what the master said to them. In verse 23, his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Can I just tell you, sometimes I think when we live our life for God and we feel like we sacrifice and we serve and we give and we do all those things, we feel like we're losing out. But if I could just tell you, you don't actually lose out whenever you invest in the kingdom of heaven. That you don't actually lose. And here's the beautiful thing. God he invites us to share in the reward of what we do with our life for him. So you don't lose, you actually gain. And then the guy with 1, unfortunately, the guy with 1 bag did something different with it. And he came and approached the master. Look at verse 24 with me and 25. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. He says, so I was what? Would you all say that word out loud? I was afraid. And I went out and hid your gold in the ground, and see, here is what belongs to you. The guy with 1 bag knew there was an expectation from the master. The problem is fear controlled his life. And if we're not careful, fear will do the same thing to us. I've found that fear can cause us sometimes to live a really stingy life. You know what I mean by that? Like when you're always afraid that there won't be enough for you and your future and what you're trying to do and try to create. That when fear controls your life, it causes us to be stingy rather than to be generous. But here's what Scripture reminds us, is that those who are generous, those who refresh others, will then be refreshed. Like there's a blessing that comes, but it'll be stopped up because of fear. Sometimes fear will cause us to miss opportunities that God will put right in front of us because it's scary to take that step. Sometimes fear will hold us paralyzed in life. And we won't make any decision because we're so afraid of making the wrong decision. And we end up living a safe, comfortable, boring life that God never intended. And we don't know what the servant's fear was. We don't know if he's afraid of messing up, losing his master's money, failing him, disappointing him. I was reading this, and I had a fresh perspective when I was reading this recently. Because I asked myself, Tim, what's your fear? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid to mess up? Yeah, are you afraid of? And then I had this realization, I'm not actually afraid of disappointing God as much as I'm afraid of looking like a disappointment to others. I'm not afraid if I try to do something for God and I fail, that he'll be mad. I'm just more afraid that I'll look like a failure to others. And yet, this story kind of just resonated this truth that I want to show you what Jesus says, the last verse that we're going to read. And that is, I think we only fail God when we do nothing with our life. Because this is what the master said to the guy who buried it. Verses 26 through 28, and then we'll close. His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would receive it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. This is the response. Can I just say, let's look at it this way. This is the response of God with each of us when it comes to what we do with the one life he's given to us. He says, listen, if you're not going to risk it, if you're not going to try, if you're not going to put yourself out there, if you're not going to do anything with what I have given to you, guess what? I'm going to take it and I'm going to give it to somebody else who will. He says, you should have at least put it on deposit with bankers. And I was reading that and I thought, do you know how bankers make money? They invest yours. They risk your money. In other words, this is what Jesus is showing us. He's saying, I am calling you to live a life that is risky. I'm calling you to live a life that is bold. I'm calling you to live a life that is intentional. And there's only two options when we read this story that they did. They either work it or they waste it. We either work it, what God's given to us, we risk it, or we waste it. I don't know about you, but I do not want to stand before my Maker one day and him say, Tim, what'd you do with all the things that I put in you? Well, I had a good job. I was a manager. Well, I made a good living. Do you know how unimpressive that is to God? Listen, I hope you have a great career, great job. I hope you make a lot of money. I hope you are able to raise a family, do all this. There's nothing wrong with all that. But if we think that that is the sole purpose of the breath in our lungs, can I just tell you, I think we're missing something. I think he's created us for more than that. And I think the risk is that we just bury the talent, we bury the gift, we bury the calling in place of just creating something for ourselves. James would say, no, if you know the good you ought to do and you don't do it, it's a sin. We're called to more. And here's the thing, it takes faith to live with intentionality. I'll just be honest with you. You know the way our world and our culture operates? Just go by your feelings. Just go by whatever feels good in that moment. However you can make the most money, be the most comfortable in life. And if Jesus were here, we'd say, hold on. I said this, if you want to follow me, deny yourself, pick up your cross. To follow Jesus is to lay down your own agenda, your own life, and it's to say, Jesus, whatever you want to do with my life. There was a prayer I prayed when I was 17 years old that changed my future. I said, Jesus, I give you my life. Use me however you want. That's a dangerous prayer if you mean it. But that's also how you'll discover the greatest joy in this life, of stepping into the very purpose and intention that God created us. And I know this is a little challenging. I know maybe you hear this, you go, I'm trying in life, and I'm not here to try to say that you're not. But the reason why I wrote this book is because I think what's easy in life is that we just meander, and we just, can I say that this way, we just wing it. We don't have intention. We're not asking God, what's your purpose for me? What do you want me to do with what you've given me? We're just going through life, and it's like, well, they'll pay me more. I'll just go over here. We'll just move over here. I'll just go pick up my family, and we'll just go over here because we'll do this, we'll do that. And we don't actually have a purpose in front of us that we're pursuing, because, listen, a paycheck will not bring joy to your life. I don't care how big it is. But a purpose will. A mission will. So I could just leave you with something, Tree.Church. Don't settle for a safe, comfortable life. Don't make church just a place where you show up and you say, feed me. And then you just go about your day and your life and do your own thing. You're created for more. You're called to more. Give your life in service to God. Now, listen, that doesn't mean you need to go quit your job and say, hey, do you guys have a position for me on staff at the Tree.Church? Don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. I think everybody's calling is different. Many of you not called to be pastors or vocational ministry. That is not the only way. Can I say it this way? That's not even the best way to impact the world. God has a calling on your life where you are, in the career you're in the spot you're in, with the family that you have. God has a calling on you right where you are. You can step into it right where you are. You don't have to go and quit and go into ministry. You are in the ministry. You're called to do ministry where you are. And I'm just telling you, I think the greatest tragedy in life, it's not that you would try and fail. It's that we would do nothing of significance for God. That to me is the greatest tragedy in life. Would you all stand with me if you would today? I want to create space for maybe God's Spirit just to speak to you and personalize this. If you just close your eyes, maybe bow your heads, and let's pray together. God, you know each heart, each person in this moment. God, you know where we are. And you know what you put in us, what you created us for. I pray right now that by your Spirit that you're speaking to each of us about the direction. Maybe we need to change directions. I don't know if God's speaking to you right now, but maybe you've been heading down a direction that is not in alignment with God. And I just believe right now the Holy Spirit is just prompting some of you to say it's time to turn and move in a new direction today. Some of you aren't sure what it looks like. And maybe you feel like you've missed opportunities because you're so unsure if you would fail. I believe the voice of God is speaking to some of you to say it's time to step out in boldness. Some of you maybe have never prayed that prayer like I did when I was 17 years old. That one single moment changed my future. I'm here today and I feel like living in the calling God has for me because when I was 17, I said yes to Jesus. Maybe you're here, you're watching this online, and maybe you have never said yes. And when I say yes, I don't mean you believe in God. I'm saying full surrender, hard stop. God, you have my life. Whatever you want to do with my future, I give it to you. Some of you may be here in this moment. That's why you're here. And you sense it on the inside. Can I just tell you that's the Holy Spirit drawing you to make a decision of faith. And it's a decision. Life is full of decisions. The most important one I ever made was to give my life to Jesus. Today, if you're here, maybe that's why you're here. I would love to lead you in a prayer if that's your space, that's your decision, if that's where you are right now. Maybe some of you, one time you walked with God, but you just recognize and you're honest to say, I've actually drifted away and I've kind of been going my own direction, doing my own thing. And I believe that the grace of God is so loving that he's just calling you back and he's saying, come on, get into a rhythm with me. Come on, I want to do something with you and in you. It begins by surrender to him. If that's your prayer, whoever you are in this space, I'm just going to lead you in a prayer. You can say it personally. This is you and God and the faith that you have. You say, Jesus, today I surrender my life to you. Today I say, whatever you want to do in the future, I'm yours. And I believe, Jesus, that you died for me, a sinner's death that I deserved. And that you rose again to give me life, and life to the fullest, eternal life. And so today, with the faith that I have, I ask you to forgive me of my sin. I'm coming to you. I surrender my life to you. I give it to you. I give my future to you. And I say from this moment forward, I choose to follow you. I also know there's many of you here today, maybe you are a follower of Jesus, but today the Spirit of God is just prompting your heart to respond. And I just want to invite us in this moment to create some space to dedicate our lives to him. The band's going to lead us in a final song here today. And as they do, this is what I want to encourage you to do. I want you to think about the words as we sing this song about making Jesus the center of your life. That when these are big words. But to mean it is to say, Jesus, I give my life to you. I surrender my future to you. Whatever you want me to take, whatever that next step looks like, I'm going to take it with you today. Come on, let's worship.